In this video, you will learn how to unlock extreme focus and concentration and activate your beast mode. Moreover, you won't just learn how it happens, you will be able to do it for your tasks at will. Imagine working with amazing efficiency, boundless creativity, and laser sharp concentration. But we know that most productivity hacks go for a toss after a couple of days. This is different. Let me prove it to you. Have you ever been so immersed in a task that time just vanished? You were in the zone, completely absorbed with nothing else visible? It often happens when you're playing games or having fun, but it also happens with work, isn't it? When this happens, your brain goes into a flow state, which is a natural state your brain is wired for. It's already in you. You just have to know how to use it. A famous researcher, Steven Kotler, has found out that while being in this state, extreme athletes have achieved superhuman feats, breaking impossible records over and over again, such as riding 80-foot waves, 1080 degrees of aerial skateboard spins and whatnot. By the end of this video, you will learn how to enter this also elusive flow state, not by chance, but when you want. So let's understand the science behind the flow cycle and get really practical steps to enter it with a little logic. Welcome to the channel. My name is Aakrit. I am a postgraduate turned working professional. I had a decent career, but I was a procrastinator and I knew it. So I spent a considerable amount of time besides my work to get myself to be more efficient, more productive, and most importantly, be consistent. I did tens of workshops, read books, practiced several productivity techniques, but I kept failing again and again and again. Until I learned about flow state when things took a turn. Flow is a psychological state in which we are fully absorbed, we are working at our peak and everything seems achievable with ultimate focus. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the term flow, called it as the optimal state where people perform at their best. It's a really beautiful feeling because one, the brain is naturally capable of achieving it, and two, because being in flow is one of the best feelings ever. After all, who wouldn't like to feel that they are capable of achieving everything they wish to? So I was finally able to put all the clutter aside and work with amazing focus and concentration on my tasks. Flow is definitely worth practicing and spending several hours mastering. Now, flow might seem binary, but it's not. It's not a switch. There isn't just being in flow and being out of flow. There are in fact 4 stages in the flow cycle and we must get through all of them before we can get started again. I'm going to tell you all about the stages of the flow cycle and the common mistakes that people make that stops them from getting into the flow. The first stage is struggle. This is where we struggle. When we first start working, things feel difficult and unsustainable. It's that feeling when you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this. I'd rather go back to Instagram. This is hard work and it stresses us. The brain literally releases stress hormones that tell us to stop, and that is uncomfortable to walk through. It's that feeling when you're like pushing a boulder up a hill. Nobody wants to do that, but the good thing is you don't have to struggle for long. You just have to push yourself enough to get through. It's not easy, but it's the only way. If it was easy, everybody would be in the zone all the time. So you have to push through, because if you get distracted, then you will have to restart the cycle again. And this time, studies say that it can take up to 23 minutes to get through the struggle phase. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that stop people from getting into flow. People spend much of their lives just going in and out of the struggle without really crossing it. And that is the same mistake that I did. And I never was satisfied with my work because I didn't get to the good part. You will have less and less energy every time you start struggling again. So remember the mantra, struggle is tough, but only once is enough. Because when you do get through, you get closer to flow. So next time you're struggling, tell yourself it's a good sign and that the rewards are coming. You have got to stay strong. And then you'll get to the next stage, which is release. You might have heard people say that you've got to stop trying to get into flow. Some say that it comes naturally. It is when you give up that things start to happen. This stage is the reason behind all of those feelings. In this stage, you'll have to give your active mind a break and let the subconscious mind take a hold of what you're trying to do. Your brain waves start transitioning, setting the stage for flow. But the question is, how do you do that? It is by giving your active mind a rest, but also not giving up on the task. So after struggling enough, you take a boring break. You can stare at the wall, at the ceilings, at the trees, clouds. You can take a walk, have a cup of tea by yourself. This is a moment when you have pushed the boulder to the top of the hill and now it's time to take a breather. But you also don't give up on the task. So you start working again. And this time you get to the third stage, which is flow. This is when the boulder is rolling down the other side of the hill on its own. Everything becomes effortless. The brain waves synchronize and your brain releases chemicals like dopamine, endorphins, norepinephrine that give a boost to your creativity and insight. These are also the chemicals of pleasure and joy, like runner's high. So you stay in flow for even longer. You enjoy the work. It's not a burden anymore. You work like a machine and time just passes by. Nothing is an effort. And then one of the two things happen. Either your task is done because you smashed it, or you start to feel that things are difficult again. And that is the time when you need to go to the last stage, which is recovery. You will have to recover even if you have completed the task. This is when the boulder has reached the bottom of the other side of the hill. You've done a great job. Now you need to give your brain some time to relax, and you'll have to put in efforts for recovery. And yes, you heard that right. You will have to put in efforts for recovery. This is not relaxation, this is active recovery. So not Netflix or video games, but yoga, meditation, light workouts, trekking in the nature, and all of that good stuff. These things will fatigue you a little, but you'll also feel good. You will be left satisfied and smiling.
That's what she said.
But all this is theory. How does one actually use these concepts to get better at whatever they want to? To get into flow, your tasks needs to have these three characteristics. First, the task should be clear as you could make it. Second, there should be immediate feedback on how you're doing. And third, the task should be challenging but not too challenging. Now let's look at why we get immediately drawn into playing games, be it video games or board games. First thing, you always know what you need to do to win. You have a goal, it's very clear. Second, the moment you perform bad, you get punished, or the moment you perform really good, you get rewarded. So there's immediate feedback. And third, more often than not, the games are challenging you. If you're playing against a player who is new or a kid, you get bored. You win, but you get bored. And if you're playing against somebody who's very experienced, then it's just frustrating. You cannot do anything. But when you're competing with somebody at nearly your own level, then there's all this rush. You're so determined to win. You're like, oh no. I'm not going anywhere. The food can wait. This takes priority, isn't it? But games already have these and your tasks don't. So you'll have to modify your tasks a bit to get these three things. I'll tell you how I do it in my daily life. I'll take content creation for an example. So earlier, I used to think that I need to make a YouTube video on so-and-so topic. Now that's a goal and it's clear, but it's not clear enough and it's daunting. So now I take a different approach. I break things down. It's like I need to find a video idea. I need to figure out the packaging, the script. I need to shoot it, edit, and so on. And then each of these tasks break down further into clearer and precise goals, like writing a script breaks down into writing the outline, writing the hook, writing the core of the script, and so on. And then I pick one of these subtasks for one work session. So that's clear goals. Now for feedback, say I'm writing a section of the script. The first thing I do is read it aloud to myself to see how it sounds. And then I ask ChatGPT how I can improve it further. So there's feedback. Sometimes I just call a friend and ask, okay, how does this sound? Tell me. And now, challenging. Script writing is already challenging enough for me. I don't need to do anything to make it more challenging. But to make it less challenging, I use templates or use ChatGPT. Now this is what I do. You need to do something similar for your tasks as well. Let me give you just one more example so that you know how to tweak things and that things are more clearer. Let's take studying for a test for an example. So the first thing, clear goals. You break down the test syllabus into chapters and sections that you need to cover in the next study session. That's clear goals. For immediate feedback, after every section you can solve the practice questions or take quizzes. If there isn't a mechanism for feedback, then you'll have to get creative, like create flashcards, or you can create a visual mind map to see what you have learned and what links where, so that you know what you're missing. And when it comes to challenging, you solve quizzes that are slightly above your skill level and not too high. To make something less challenging, you either take a help from a friend or you take help from a YouTube video. But this was for studying. You might be in a different line of work. So you might have to get creative to get these three things in your tasks. But trust me, it's worth the effort because it can get you to flow. But what next? Let's say you have a task with these three criteria met. How do you ensure you get into flow? Now you will have to get through the 4 stages of the flow cycle and avoid the most common mistakes that people make in each stage of the flow cycle. First, you start struggling for 10 to 20 minutes. Now, as I said earlier, the most common mistakes that people make here is avoidance or disengagement, meaning they either don't start struggling or they give up too soon. Don't do that. Keep your phone away before you start struggling so that you are not distracted. You'll have to focus on struggling and getting across at once. Remember, struggle is tough, but only once is enough. And once you've struggled enough, you'll have to release. You will be at a point like, okay, I'm done, I need a break. So you take a step back. But you don't give up on the task. So you take a boring break, as I said. And this is where you watch the clouds, you stare at the wall, you have a cup of tea, or you walk. Beethoven and Steve Jobs used to walk. Einstein played violin. But remember, you don't start doing something that requires conscious effort. So you don't use a smartphone, you don't start reading a book, you don't talk to people. Otherwise, all your struggle will be wasted for nothing. Now, after the boring break, you start working again, and now it's time for flow. Now, it might not happen immediately and it might not happen the first time you try it, but you don't give up, you keep going on. And before you know it, you will be riding that boulder which is rolling down the other side of the hill. Now, the mistake that you need to avoid here is getting out of the flow too soon. Why would you want to do that? You're so in the zone, you're smashing things. So you keep smashing things. You don't keep anything near you that disturbs you. Let's say you have a phone. One notification can take you out of the flow that you worked so hard to get into. So you take steps beforehand to ensure that you are in the flow for as long as you can. So you keep the phone away or you put it in do not disturb. You inform everyone of your work timings so that they don't disturb you. You can go to your dedicated work zone if you have one. Remember, this is your optimal zone. You are at your peak here, so you stay there as long as you can. And this is why I personally don't like some productivity techniques such as the Pomodoro, where say you work for 30 minutes and then an alarm reminds you to take a break for 5 minutes. While it's good for building discipline, it just takes you out of the zone and it's not good for anything requiring deep work. You have to have a big enough time slot dedicated for your work to get the most out of flow, and then you get into recovery. But why is that? Like, why recover? Aren't you done with the flow? Because if you don't recover, you won't get into flow the next time. Your struggle won't give results. And as I said earlier, this is not relaxation, this is active recovery. So this is not just unwinding on the couch, this is intentional. You do something like walking, trekking, meditation and stuff like that. The biggest mistake that people make here is not actually doing active recovery or not doing it enough. Now tell me, what would happen if somebody is just lifting weights day and night? Do you think they'll have more muscles than somebody who is actually giving their muscles a break and spending some time in recovery? Muscles break when you work out and they are actually made again when you are recovering. Remember that. And because you're in it for the long run and not just lifting the weights once, you recover well and you recover enough and you keep yourself motivated and you do everything that helps you grow, like subscribing to this channel. Now wait a minute, you clicked on this video and you stayed till now. It means you have ambition. And I know you have the desire and the capacity to do everything you want to. So take a moment to pat yourself and be grateful to your journey so far. And do it with a smile because we don't do it enough. You can take control of your productivity and your personal growth and you can hit that red button. I wish you all the best and see you.